Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian Craig. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I promise you, you will love my content, all right? Click that notification bell and also like the video. That helps a lot, guys. And I am on the radio live every weekday morning, and I live stream right here on this channel when I'm live on the radio, taking live calls from radio listeners and people watching on YouTube on the radio each and every morning. I also upload my podcast up here, and that I do with my wife, Kathy, and I do random streams like this all the time. All right, so what's going on right now in Minneapolis is insanity, and there's been a huge breaking event. In fact, it happened just a few minutes ago, this breaking news. I had to change the thumbnail and the title to this video from a previous one I had just a few minutes ago, because this is how much news is breaking up there in Minneapolis. And, you know, what's happening in Minneapolis, hey there, Ann Gallagher, welcome, welcome, and the rest of you, is outrageous. And coming up in a little bit, Kamala Harris has spoken and made some of the most irresponsible comments I've ever seen somebody at that high level of office make while everything's going on in Minneapolis. We'll get to that in a bit, but here's the breaking news. I'm going to jump right into it. Veteran Minneapolis cop, this is the female police officer that shot Daunte Wright. Veteran Minneapolis cop will be charged tomorrow for shooting dead Daunte Wright during a traffic stop after she and the Brooklyn Center chief of police both resign as the city erupts in protest. Now let's go through this story. In fact, this is broken so fast that I have not even read this story yet. Okay, I've not even read this story. I'm going to read this story with all of you, experience it with you watching. This is pretty upsetting stuff. The white veteran police officer, why do they have to say that she is white? What is the relevance to her being white? Does anyone know? Can anybody explain that to me? Why do they have to throw that in here? The white veteran police officer who shot dead Daunte Wright during a traffic stop in Minneapolis after allegedly confusing her gun for a taser could reportedly face charges as early as tomorrow after she and her police chief boss both resigned from the force. It is not yet clear what charges Brooklyn Center police officer Kimberly Potter will face over the death of the 20-year-old black man, but multiple sources told KSTB they could be filed on Wednesday. What could they possibly be charging her with? How could they have... I want you to think about this now. How could they have a proper investigation? They could investigate, interview witnesses, review everything, then have a sit down and decide what the conclusion of that investigation is among the investigators. And then it get passed on to prosecutors who would look over the conclusions of the investigation and decide whether or not to pursue charges. And if they do, what charges should they pursue? This is what I was talking about yesterday, where what's going on here with this police officer, this is a lynching type situation, a legal injustice. There's no way you could have an investigation of any kind this quick with something like this. Both Potter, that's the lady cop, and police chief Tim Gannon resigned Tuesday, 2 days after Wright was shot dead, and he was pulled over for what police said were expired license plates. Well, there's more information we have on that I'm going to get to in a bit. We got a lot of news on Daunte here. In her resignation letter, Potter, who has worked for the department for 26 years, did not address the deadly shooting that has sparked 2 days of violent protest and unrest across the city. I have loved every minute of being a police officer and serving this community to the best of my ability, but I believe it is in the best interest of the community, the department, and my fellow officers if I resign immediately, Potter said. Potter, a married mother of two, has been on administrative leave since the shooting, which is standard. Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott announced the resignation of Potter and the police chief. Gannon was the one who revealed during an intense press conference a day earlier that Wright's death was the result of an accidental discharge after Potter mistook her taser for a gun. The resignations came as pressure mounted for Potter to be fired, including from the mayor. Okay, why? I understand her resigning. She's got her 25 years in. She put in her retirement. I understand that. Why is the police chief out? You know, this city is under attack. They've been under a couple nights of attack. There's been a lot of violence, a lot of vandalism, and I think the police officer that runs the city, the police chief, well, this ex-police chief, since he's resigned, when I saw him yesterday, he seems incredibly competent. And I was very impressed with the police chief yesterday, not just that he was emotional, is how he was out there on the front lines of everything that was going on during the nights of unrest so far. And I mean, that's just outrageous. I mean, it really is. It's not clear if she's going to be entitled to keep her pension. Really? How can it not be clear? There's been no investigation. There's been no conclusions of an investigation. There's been no legal proceeding. There's been no legal proceeding that's rendered a verdict in a case against her. They're taking everything away from her based on it. This is not just, this is an injustice. This is an injustice. Regardless of what, now listen, now I support this police officer. I think it was a tragic accident. But when we get to some more details that she knew and the other officers knew during this arrest, you know, some of you that might be on the fence will be on the officer's side too. This was a very dangerous arrest for the police officers that they were in. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But this is regardless of what your opinion is on the police officer here, I'm with the police officer, but say you're not. Even if you're not on the side of the police officer, which I wish you were, this is still, you got to recognize that this is still an injustice. She's going to be charged? How can you charge without an investigation? Activists who attended the news conference called for sweeping changes to the Brooklyn Center Police Department and criticized the acting police chief for not yet having a plan. Elliott said there were 49 police officers in the department, but none of them lived in Brooklyn Center. He didn't immediately have information regarding racial diversity of those officers, but said, we have very few people of color in our department. Think about this. This is a tiny police department of 49. She was a senior officer. She's out. The police chief, he's out. Now they're down to 47 officers. And how many of them are rookies? This is a police department that's very overwhelmed. And I don't even know how they can. They must have called in some other departments. This is the mayor. He went on to say he hoped Potter's resignation would bring some calm to the community, but that it would keep working towards full accountability under the law. And when they talk about sweeping changes to the police department, what changes? What changes? You no longer stop people that are breaking the law. What changes are they suggesting? Now, look at this. This is new. This is in the Daily Mail. Daunte Wright had a warrant out for his arrest for attempted aggravated robbery. These are charges after choking and holding a woman at gunpoint for $820 in 2019, court papers reveal. Now that's some hardcore stuff right there. I mean, that's a hardcore crime right there. The cops in this tiny little town knew this. They knew this. They knew this about him as they were handcuffing him. This is why he made his escape. Daunte Wright was shot dead by Brooklyn Center police officer Kimberly Potter Sunday after he was pulled over for an expired license plate. You know, oftentimes people get pulled over on minor traffic infractions and they find all kinds of things. That's just the way it is. It leads to other things, and it led to this warrant. Wright had a warrant out for his arrest for attempted aggravated robbery charges at the time. Now remember how this story developed? The original story was he was pulled over for having an air freshener hanging from the rear view mirror, which is illegal in Minnesota. I don't even know if that's true, but they said that's why he was pulled over. And now we find out he had a pretty serious warrant out for him. Charging papers allege Wright and a second man attended a party in December 2019 at the home of two women. The women allowed the pair to crash after they said they did not have a ride home. The next morning, after one of the women went to withdraw $820 in rent money, Daunte Wright allegedly held her at gunpoint and demanded she give him the cash. Now keep in mind, the officers that had pulled over Daunte Wright knew this. This is why he was being cuffed. This is why he was being arrested, not for expired plates and no proof of insurance. His bail was originally set at $100,000 with orders that he should not contact the victim or any witnesses, refrain from drugs and alcohol, and not have any weapon. His bail, it was revoked in July last year due to his failure to not possess a firearm or ammunition and not keeping in touch with his probation officer. The Daily Mail has also learned that online speculation that Wright did not know there was a warrant out for his arrest is false. He knew he had a warrant out for a long time. Where's the responsibility put on him? Why is the responsibility always put on the officers? You know, this is a guy who's been evading a warrant for quite some time for a pretty serious crime involving a gun. Okay? This is the kind of crime, you're going to jail, you're doing time for this. You're not getting away with, you're doing time for this crime. He's got extra crimes because he's also a bail jumper at this point, right? And he knew he had this warrant out for him. So the cops know this. And they've also, because of this crime, they've got to assume that he has a weapon, even if they don't see a weapon. I have not heard it said definitively whether or not there was a weapon in the vehicle. I don't know. I haven't heard that really established yet. But you, in this situation, you have to assume that he has a weapon. Now, here's a question for you guys. Let me know in the comments. By the way, those of you that are new here, make sure you subscribe, click that notification bell, and everyone in the chat room, hey guys, make sure you guys like the video too. Liking the video helps. When you like the video, that helps this video get suggested in other people's feeds on YouTube who are interested in this type of content, and that's great. So if you like the video, that helps me out a lot right here on my channel. So yeah, I mean, my goodness, see, things are changing. This isn't about an air freshener hanging from a rearview mirror anymore. This is outrageous. And they're turning the cop into a criminal that they're going to charge? Could you imagine being a recruiter for a police department in America today? How could you possibly make a decision to become a police officer in this country today when you pull over someone who's got an outstanding warrant on a gun charge? They put a gun to somebody to steal $820 and they've jumped bail. And you're losing everything because of what they did. And what they did was try to escape. If he would not have tried, they had one wrist cuffed, he broke free, got in the car, and was going to speed off in the car. Should the police, what do you guys think? Should the police have let him go? What do you guys think? He's been on the run for a while with this outstanding warrant. And he was not the brightest bulb in the bunch, because if he was, what kind of person would drive around in a car with expired plates that has a warrant like this out for them? And again, Daily Mail's confirming that he knew that this warrant was out there for him. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now, this is why there were so many officers there. This is why it moved from beyond a standard traffic stop on expired plates, excuse me, to this. Because it moved to another level with the warrant. And then it moved to another level when he tried to make an escape. Because that's what he did. He was at the point when the lady police officer, Potter, went up to Daunte Wright. He was being handcuffed. You've seen the video. Black officer was handcuffing him. He had the cuff, it looked like on his left wrist, and he broke free. He was at that point, think about this. He was an escaped prisoner who had been evading a warrant on a pretty serious charge involving a weapon. That seems to be a pretty big deal. Seems to be a pretty big deal. You know, and what's happened to that police chief, I saw that press conference yesterday. He's a good guy, and he's smart. That police chief, how he had the lights off in the buildings and they had the street lights off, he knows how to handle these situations. And he's, boom, gone. You know why the police chief is gone? Because he's an effective police officer. What did he do wrong? What did that police chief do wrong? He did nothing wrong. And you know what? Officer Potter here, she didn't do anything wrong either. Yeah, she said she thought it was a taser. I believe her based on her reaction. But even if she didn't know she had a taser, they had to stop him, in my opinion. And I welcome yours. Let me know in the comments below. You guys in the chat room too. Let me know what you think about all this. I know it's pretty bad. Now this is the father of Daunte Wright. He says, "I can't accept it was a mistake. Daunte Wright's parents refused to accept that veteran cop of 26 years who was training a rookie could confuse gun with taser and accidentally kill their son." Of course she was confused. It was, somebody that's been a police officer that long. I would hope that they wouldn't be so confused in such a situation. But if it wasn't a mistake, what else could it have been? If it wasn't a mistake, it would have to be like a premeditated event. She would have had to decide in this split moment, as he was escaping from custody, he had the one cuff on, as Daunte's making his escape, she would have to have decided right then to make this crazy scheme to kill him, but do this fake thing that I'm going to tase you? Come on. Come on. Of course it was an accident. We've seen I'm very happy that police chief, before they got rid of this great cop, released the body cam footage, because the body cam footage and this other information that I've been sharing with you puts everything, I think, in a pretty good and proper perspective. And, I was talking about this today. This officer, Kimberly Potter, I don't think she still is, to my knowledge, but she was in the past at least. She may still be, but she certainly was in the past the president of the local police union chapter, which means she's a union woman, which means she's probably, like most people in Minnesota, she's probably a Democrat. Oh my goodness. But Daunte Wright has a lot of responsibility in this situation, right? Escaping from police custody after he was resisting. Come on. Pretty scary stuff, people. Pretty scary stuff. Yep. Yeah, that's the story I just went through. Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, that one we already went through. Oh yes, Kamala Harris. Okay. Kamala Harris has finally spoken. People have been waiting for Kamala to talk. And, since she was appointed the border czar, she hasn't been talking. She spoke today. And she made what I would consider to be, I'm going to play the video here for you in just a second. But Kamala Harris here made what I would consider to be the most irresponsible comments that I have ever heard come from somebody at the level that she holds in federal government. Right now keep in mind, set the scene, what's going on here. we've got a major racial violence incident ongoing up there in the Minneapolis area over this issue we're just talking about now, right? This shooting of Wright by the lady cop. We've got the Chauvin trial going on. The prosecution had a terrible case. There's a verdict watch going on in there, and all kinds of racial problems are expected in the Chauvin trial in the same city that this is going on, regardless of what the verdict is. And when you're in a position of leadership, when there's types of incidents like this going on, you want to cool people off, not enrage them. And Kamala Harris, she was talking about race and giving birth. And, you know, she makes everything about race. Listen to this. This is Kamala Harris today.
This week is Black Maternal Health Week. And
by the way, Black Maternal, there's a week for everything, right? I think this next week is Donut Hole Week. You know, there's a week. Yeah, every week has so many weeks in it. You know what I mean? It's always a special week for something or a special month for something. But listen to this.
This week is Black Maternal Health Week. And make no mistake, Black women in our country are facing a maternal health crisis. Mm-hmm. Black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And it is important to note that Native women are 2.3 times.
Okay, Native women, I don't know, what is a Native woman? That would be, I guess, a Native American, like an Indian. I mean, my wife is a Native woman. She was born in America. I'm a Native man. I was born in America. You know, those of you that are watching me right now in America and were born in America, you're Native person. So I guess she means Native American Indians.
2 to 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And it is important to note that Native women are 2.3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. We know the primary reasons why: systemic racial inequities and implicit bias.
Okay, now I'm going to slow down, you know. Now, I'm not agreeing with what she's saying, but just for the discussion, let's say that these comments that she's made are true. Racial disparity causing childbirth deaths in women who are minorities. While there's a race riot going on in Minneapolis, and there's another race riot expected to happen with the Chauvin verdict in the George Floyd trial, is this the kind of thing you should be talking about as the Vice President of the United States during a racial riot period? Or is this something maybe you should put off down the road until the racial violence is stopped in the city? Because what this does is fuel the flames of the racial animosity that's going on in Minneapolis, which, by the way, spread to New York last night. It spread to Portland. And that's why I'm telling you, regardless of whether or not what she's saying is true or not, it's irresponsible to make these comments right now. But let's just rewind a little and hear the rest of her comments.
Systemic racial inequities and implicit bias. And the consequences are both very real. Many of the women in this room have experienced them firsthand, and as the ambassador said, we will hear their stories, which they speak with great courage, given the pain that they have experienced.
Okay, now I don't know what role race plays in women giving birth, not surviving the birth. Black women, Native American Indian women more or less than white women. I don't accept that. That seems very strange to me. I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, this might have been true 100 years ago, but I don't believe this could possibly be true in 2021. You know, there's a lot of, Steve Kane has this phrase that he uses a lot, which is very true. Figures don't lie, but liars can figure. I don't know if Steve originated it, but it's a pretty good saying. Figures don't lie, but liars can figure. For example, you hear all the time, 80% of marriages end within the first 2 years of marriage. That's not true. There was a study done in the 1970s when no-fault marriage first happened. And there were a lot of divorces in the 70s because you could get divorced for no reason at that point. And at that point, 80% of marriages within the first 2 years ended because you didn't have to have cause to get divorced. That's not the case today. So, they pick and choose. But regardless, like I say, regardless of whether or not what she says is true or not is not the issue right now. While there's a racial violence incident going on, expected to go on still tonight, tomorrow, and next week through the weekend, and then we got the Chauvin trial, which will result in other things, it's not the time to play the race card. But what's going on here is this. Kathy and I were talking about this a lot on the podcast. The Democrat Party have lost a lot of their minority-based voters because of Donald Trump to the Republicans. Okay? And what they're attempting to do is bring back minorities to the Democrat Party. And they're doing that by causing as much racial division as they possibly can. I've talked about this. Some of you that have followed me for a while have heard me talk about this. I went to a Trump rally the Thanksgiving before COVID hit. And it was Thanksgiving week, a couple days before Thanksgiving, here in South Florida, and it was a huge Trump rally, and it was jam-packed. I could not believe how many minorities were there. I've been going to Republican events for years and years and years, and here in Florida, you'd see some Hispanic people because, we've got a large Cuban population in Florida, and most Cubans are Republicans. But you would not see very many black people, one or two at Republican events before Trump. And I went to this Trump rally, and a large number of Hispanics that were not Cuban, because we here in Florida we have a huge Hispanic community. Not all of them are Cuban, and the way that I know they're not Cuban is because they make sure they have the flag of their country on their clothes, or something that shows what country they're from on their clothing, so they're not. They don't want people to think they're all Cuban, Puerto Rican, Guatemalan, Honduran. I couldn't believe. And African Americans, I have never seen so many black people at a Republican event. I'll tell you this. There were more African Americans at that Trump rally. It was Thanksgiving week before COVID. There were more African Americans at that one Trump rally than at every Republican event I had been to before combined. And the Democrat Party is a loose connection of special interest groups. Blacks that are liberal, gay liberals, gay Hispanic, and it's a coalition of groups that really don't like one another, oftentimes. But it's a and they've lost huge chunks of the Hispanic vote and a huge chunk of the black vote, and they're really trying to get the black vote back with this nonsense. This was irresponsible of Kamala Harris, and if we had a real media, they would call her out on it. But I will probably be the only person that calls her out on it in that particular way. Now, this is something I just wanted to share. Mika Brzezinski, okay? Now, you guys have heard the story. Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, they're married. And a lot of people don't know this. Mika Brzezinski, her father was the national security advisor for President Carter while he was president. So she's a very well-connected, deep stater, political establishment family. But Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough were big Trump supporters. They were, even when he first became president. And then they went to the first New Year's Eve at Mar-a-Lago with Trump as president. Mika had just had a massive facelift, and her face was bandaged like the mummy. And Joe Scarborough had asked President Trump if she could sit at the table with him for dinner, and he said no because, the bandages that were bleeding and everything, and he didn't think that was too appetizing for people at his very special New Year's event. And immediately, Morning Joe and Mika turned on President Trump and told us he was the worst thing that ever had happened in American politics. She commented on this today. Mika Brzezinski says Trump's bleeding facelift tweet made her laugh out loud as she accuses him of being obsessed with her and recalls him boasting that Melania was perfect because she had had no work done. Okay, now, if she laughed out loud and it didn't bother her, why did Mika and Joe, who were huge Donald Trump supporters, turn on him and have their entire life center around going after him. Of course it'd bother anybody, so you just can't trust it. Now this here, I just want to mention this here. By the way, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Click that notification bell, and everyone watching the video in the chat room and watching it later, if you could like the video, that would help a lot. Liking the video helps the way the YouTube algorithm, you hear all the YouTube guys talk about this, the way the YouTube algorithm operates, liking the video will help this video get recommended to other people that like this type of comment and share our worldview on things. So that helps a lot. So if you could like the video, everyone, that helps a lot. Okay, so Project Veritas just had a great release today. CNN director admits that the network engaged in propaganda to remove Trump from the presidency. And you guys should go to the Project Veritas when you're done with me. Don't go until I'm done. I'm almost done. I don't want to send you away till I'm done. But when I'm done, go to the Project Veritas YouTube channel, watch the whole video. And this guy even talks about how they were trying to make Biden look like he was fit, and all this stuff. And it's a very interesting video. But this is another one. All these Project Veritas videos are guys out to lunch. They're always at restaurants and things like this. And, and a lot of times these guys, what gets them is they want to brag, especially to the ladies that are talking to them. And this guy, oh man, he just went off. I'm sure he's in big trouble over there at the Clinton News Network, CNN. It's a great video. So go to Project Veritas, check that out. All right, hey guys, my name's Brian Craig. I'll be live, of course, as I am every weekday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time on the radio. I'll live stream right here on this channel like I always do, taking calls from the radio listeners. And, of course, you guys that also watch on YouTube. Share your thoughts in the comments about all the things I discussed here. And everyone in the chat room, thanks for joining me live, guys. I appreciate all of you joining me and supporting my channel and supporting my podcast.